Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm well as well. Got a little scratchy thing in my throat, but I think it's just allergies and stuff.
Yeah, gross lately, everywhere. Good morning, David.
David on too.
Can you hear us, David?
I'm here. Yeah. Joy just told me she's got a Zoom meeting upstairs too. That's where her office is kind of set up. So I'm relocate.
All right. Uh-oh. He's lost his signal in the basement. There he is.
Yeah.
Good morning, Stacy.
Good morning.
Well, believe it or not, we're all here. I think the mayor mentioned to David this morning that he will be in and out of the meeting. He's got some contractors at the house on some, I don't know, emergency work or something. But we're all here. We're live. We're ready to go.
Okay.
So, Stacy, I'm gonna ask you to lead.
Yes. Well, obviously, I sent you all the memo a little while back on digital signatures, and obviously, this came about because of the pandemic. But after we thought about it, we thought that it would make the process more efficient anyway. But Tracy had asked, actually back in early May, if we could consider digital signatures because at the time with everybody working at home still and out of the office, we were literally driving the checks from house to house to get them signed, which at the time, obviously, Tracy was concerned about how many hands that were passing through and exposure. So obviously with budget, we didn't quite address that concern immediately. It got lost a little bit in the shuffle, but we talked about the fact that we felt it would still be more efficient to have digital signatures and that we felt we had sufficient internal controls in place to prevent any one person from being able to write a check and get it cashed. So I've sent you the memo. Since then, I've consulted. I spoke on the phone yesterday with the city of Nicholasville, their finance director, because they do use digital signatures for both of their signatures, and they actually probably have less controls in place than we do. They don't have a positive pay system with their bank like we do, and their controls are more on the back end. So we've looked at, and I've discussed it with our auditors. Of course, our auditors keep playing devil's advocate with what about this and what about this. So, yeah. So the main thing with Holly obviously runs the checks and prints them and mails them. And Tracy is obviously a signer, and Arlene typically signs on behalf of the mayor's office. So the three of them cannot get a check all the way through the system. Holly does not have access to the positive pay system at Central Bank, meaning even if she were to print a check and attempt to cash it, the bank would not let her cash it unless myself, Tracy, or Arlene had put it into the bank system. Tracy and Arlene do not have the capability in the accounting system to get a payment request all the way through to becoming a check. They don't even have access to the module and the screen that's required to print checks. So they don't have access. So then where Heather, our auditor, and I went back and forth, obviously, was me, because being that I'm the administrator for the accounting program, and I also have access to Central Bank's positive pay system, we talked about me and where we could make sure there are controls in place for myself, which I would want that as well, because I want to make sure that I'm covered and nobody can accuse me of anything. The check printing software is not on the server. It is housed solely on Holly's computer. So I do not have, as long as Holly makes sure she changes her password, then I don't have access to her computer to actually even print the checks. The second step we took, because Heather came back and said, well, can you put that software on your computer without any oversight? So Holly called the check printing software company, and they will add instructions that they are not to put that program on my computer without authorization from like Andrew or the mayor. And of course, that would only be in the instance of if Holly had to be out for an extended period of time. Unless Holly had to be out for an extended period of time, there would be no reason for me to print checks. If Holly's on vacation, we usually just skip that week. We make sure everything that has to be paid before she goes on vacation is paid. So we wouldn't do it in the instance of just vacations or being out sick a couple days. We would obviously only do it if she ever were on like some sort of extended medical leave. Then we might consider doing that. The other cities that I spoke with seem to have, like I said, more of the back end controls. So someone other than the finance director does the bank reconciliations. As of right now, Holly does those, and I just review them. So I already don't do the bank reconciliations. Holly does them. The second thing is for back-end controls that they have other people review the checks. We already have that happening in a couple of ways, but could add an extra step. Obviously, it's after they're mailed, but City Council gets the check register every meeting. Obviously, you all can look at 2 check registers from 2 separate meetings and be sure that, no check numbers are skipped and that kind of thing. That where one picks up, the other one, or where one leaves off, the other one picks up. Since right now, Tracy typically physically handles the check and the mayor's office typically physically handles the check. I typically upload the check register to Central Bank, which obviously is a step that happens before checks can be paid. So in that memo I sent, and I've discussed this with Tracy, she would take over that duty of uploading the checks to Central Bank, which gives her a chance to review the check register before uploading those to Central Bank and seeing what's being paid. So that's check number 1. And obviously that prevents anything being cashed without Tracy having seen it first. The second step is when we print checks from our check printing software, it spits out a PDF copy of the checks. So we would forward those to the mayor's office to have a review. Now that review may or may not be completed before they're mailed, but it would be kind of that back end review like City Council has with the check register. So we feel that we have sufficient controls in place. Like I think I said in my email, when I worked for Clark County Schools 14 years ago, as soon as I walked in the door, they already had it set up for digital signatures. Most school districts in the state do. Some cities may not if their staff is too small or they don't have, and aren't able to do the internal controls, but we have enough people involved in the process that I feel we can have enough separation of duties and controls. So it just makes the process a little more efficient. It allows Holly to print the checks and immediately, be able to start getting them prepared to mail out, as opposed to, we always run checks on Friday, and usually sometimes it's by the end of the day, Friday, before she gets the checks back, even when we're all in the building, because they take them, they sign them when they have time. They may sit with one person for an hour or two. They go with the next person for an hour or two. And then by the time Tracy gets them, or not Tracy, Holly gets them back, she's usually taking them home with her on Friday evening to get them out in the mail, because they don't always get back to her in time to do it before her work day ends. Yes, David.
Stacy, I think this is very positive and progressive, and something that we need to do to help me understand it more. I'm not really on the operations side of banking, more in the lending side, but how many signatures do we need? And are there different thresholds for dollar amounts that require a different signature?
No, all of our checks require 2 signatures.
Okay.
Regardless of the dollar,
then it still needs 2 signatures.
Yes.
And with this digital signing, who all will be authorized signers? That might have been in the memo, but
that's right now. Obviously, we have a municipal order in place authorizing the mayor and Tracy, Arlene, Megan, and myself as check signers. We're actual check signers on the account. The process has been put in place that someone from the mayor's office and someone, well, Tracy, should sign, and that Megan and myself are only backups. So that's the process right now. I don't sign checks on a regular basis unless someone's on vacation.
Yeah.
Megan is usually the absolute last resort if nobody else is around. So if we digitized signatures, we would most likely digitize Tracy and the mayor's signatures.
Okay.
So obviously they would have to sign something. Those would be uploaded and sent to the check printing software company, who would then digitize those and put them into that software.
Okay.
And then so.
Okay.
Good morning.
Welcome,
Good
Mayor.
morning. Sorry I'm late, guys.
Well, we're done. See ya.
I hope so.
And then, like I said, we implemented before this the positive pay system with our bank account because one of our vendors had checks stolen from their mailbox. It wasn't any fault of ours, but we had mailed checks to a vendor in Northern Kentucky somewhere. Their checks got stolen from their mailbox. We used the Micker ink to print our checks. And they had been able to rub that off and type over a new payee. With the positive pay system, if the check number, check date, payee, and dollar amount don't match what we've uploaded into the system, then Central Bank kicks out an exception. We have to review those exceptions,
Right.
and make sure that they're okay to go. And if we have not uploaded or we don't check the exceptions in time, then they will not pay the check. And the same works.
Okay, that's good. Do they say, or do you think that this is actually it may be safer than just signing checks and helping reduce or eliminate fraud?
I actually think it could be, in the sense that obviously this would never happen, but I mean, they don't check. I don't know, Mayor, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that they're there matching signatures to the signature cards to make sure they're accurate. And there has been a time or two where, in the hurry of signing and somebody flipping through checks,
Yeah.
there's actually been a time a check has gotten through with only one signature.
Well, there are protocols in place. I don't know if we should, I don't want to,
Okay.
I don't know if I should talk about that right now, but there are. So, and the mayor knows
Okay.
that as well.
The point is,
Okay.
I think that it's a lot easier to
Thresholds,
record
different-
someone's written
Okay.
signature than it is to get their username and password. I happen to think that's a lot more secure.
Yeah.
But
I think so too, personally. And not only that, if it happens, I feel like it's traceable or trackable or whatever, and you can say, hey, this is where it took place. You can.
that's right. And not only that, but that if it is a login from somewhere else, then you can trace the IP and say where that
Right.
is. And
Right.
no,
Yeah,
Well, I'm good with it. Like I said, I think it's a progressive step and certainly appropriate, whether we have health issues going on or not.
Right.
that's how
That was our thought. So.
the positive pay system really seems to be a strong control, David. It's almost an extension of a two-party transaction, but the positive pay is the second part of the transaction. It's not just the check, but it
Right.
has to have a verification ledger.
Okay. Well, good deal. What do we need to do? Is that it for that issue?
make
We
a
just wanted to make-
recommendation for
Yeah,
for
you all
council.
were in support, and then we'll bring it on Monday for the full
Yeah.
council.
I
Hopefully.
think it's a good idea too.
Connie, what I had to call David this morning about a different issue earlier, and this is one of those things where we think this is a good move. It's a procedural move, but council's always leery anytime we change a financial process. And we didn't want to put you all in a position of bringing it forward and you having to say that you really hadn't had a chance to evaluate it. So we just, process wise, we wanted to make sure that you all got it and were comfortable with it before we brought it to the council.
All right. You want
I
to move
think
on to
other-
revenue, Stacy?
Yes, I went in and we just received, I think, so this won't be the absolute latest information. I just got an email from the Revenue Commission this morning. So they are about to give us another transfer today, I believe, for collections from the end of June. But Andrew, do I have permission to share my screen?
Here, let me give it to you.
Okay.
You got it.
All right. Give me just 1 second. Make sure I get to the appropriate page. Okay, let me know when you see the spreadsheet.
We got it.
So this is payroll tax collections. The last time you saw this, it was through April, and April was complete. I have added the first transfer that we received for May payroll returns. So as you can see, it was 1.2 million. This is the one that we would have received an additional amount this morning. So that will change. But as you can see, as of today, we've received 11.5 million through our first transfer for May payroll. We budgeted 12.5, so we're behind just a hair under $1 million. But I am hopeful that we will at least meet budget, considering I know we have a little bit still to come in from May and the whole month of June. So even with April, us thinking April would be our lowest month, I think we could hit our budget. Go ahead, David.
For just a moment, I had like an Excel sheet and I saw some numbers and they popped away and now it says Zoom.
What? Are you using your computer, David?
I am, yeah. Oh, here they go. I don't know. They're here now.
Okay.
Could be your internet connection.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to get it through.
We're good.
From what I can tell from the email that comes from the Revenue Commission, the payroll deposits in this latest transfer appear to be about 123,000. So that would get added on to the May total that you see. So the 1.2 million would go up to 1.35. From what I can tell, there will be usually there's a few refunds that come out of that number. But that's what we're seeing right now. So even though May looks like it could be down from last year, potentially. Last year, May was the 3 pay period month. I know for us, this year, May was still the 3 pay period month, but I don't know exactly what Toyota's pay schedule is when they're paying. Maybe June will be their 3 pay period month this year. I don't know. That's possible. We won't know fully until we see June's numbers, but but overall budget wise, I'm hopeful that obviously we would at least meet or exceed our budget.
I mean, so unless June's numbers are less than, say, $800,000,
Right.
we will meet our budget.
That's
Yes.
huge, guys. That's huge.
It's a very pleasant surprise from what we thought not too long ago.
Yeah.
Yes. So even though April was down, it appears, I know that Toyota went back early in May. So it appears that we've, the city of Georgetown's economy has hopefully recovered, at least for obviously our manufacturing industrial businesses.
Well, Toyota, they can continue to pay their employees.
Yes, and they did, most of the time that they were out. So
Yeah, which helped us immensely.
yes.
So I have a question about this, Stacy. So if we meet our budget, are we still going to have to take quite a bit out of our fund balance?
I will know more about that here at the end of this month. It won't be as much, not as much as we, when we had that update and we were kind of preparing that worst case scenario of
Right.
what we thought it was like. We should not need to go that deep into reserves. Now,
That's-
obviously the original budget still went into reserves.
Yeah.
A couple of $1 million. So, I would anticipate going to reserves to some extent, but hopefully not that extra amount we
Okay.
thought might happen.
This is
so-
really good news.
Yes, and obviously this is the one we were most concerned about. I'm going to try to switch to net profits. You all let me know if it changes on your screen. If it doesn't change on your screen, then I'll need to stop the share and
We
redo
did.
it.
We see it.
It did. So for net profits, since the last time I had updated you all, we received an additional $90,000.
Can you
that
scroll
came-
it up a little bit, Stacy? Can you scroll it up a little bit so I can see it? Net profits? A little more.
Let's scroll
Scroll
a little
up.
more.
A little more. Thank you. Good.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So here you can see May was complete the last time we spoke. And in June, you can see the detailed numbers, hopefully here in the white bar. I'm not sure. But we've received about $90,000 in June that we didn't have the last time we spoke. So we're at that. And I'm still right now just projecting credits at the end of June. Last June, on June 30th, we owed 1.1 million in credits to companies. So I have that same 1.1 million in here because I know some companies who had a credit last year, I don't think it's changed. I think they still have a very large credit right now on their return. The others kind of fluctuate a little bit, but we're probably still looking at least $1 million, I would say, in credits at the end of the year. That always comes off the revenue. Obviously, I would hope that this number is still not complete. We know that deadline of July 15th. So I'm hopeful that maybe by the time we get to the end of June or the 1st of August, that we're seeing some additional revenue here. And then obviously we had projected a little bit of an increase in our budget. We still may have been off on that a little bit. So I think this one will still come in less than budgeted, but how much, I'm not sure at this time. I would like to see us to hopefully at least get to the same as last year once those final returns are filed.
Can you
July
bring it back
15th.
down a little bit, Stacy? I'm sorry. Scroll it back down. A little more. I'm sorry to be a pain in y'all's butt.
You're fine. That's about as far as it scrolls.
That's good.
Okay. But like I said, I'm hopeful we'll see the returns that maybe come in by July 15th. I'm hopeful that maybe we can get up to at least last year's numbers.
That's a pleasant surprise too, really.
Yeah, and we're still waiting on this one. It'll be a month before I know for sure, but
The thing that Scott has cautioned us about during Revenue Commission meetings, Connie,
Mhm.
is that we need to be particularly careful with net profits. We've all been pleasantly surprised with the way payroll receipts have stayed strong. But we're really and truly seeing right now our net profits numbers that were generated last year. And what the net profits numbers that we see reported a year from now are going to be the experiences that business is having right now. So what Scott has cautioned me about is not to get overly optimistic with what the current numbers are showing, because net profits will certainly be impacted when we get those numbers a year from now.
Okay, that makes sense.
That was a cautionary thing that I wanted us to have in our mind.
Okay,
That's true. That's right. Because for a business, it's going to be through December. Is that what he's saying?
yes.
Depending on what their fiscal year is, probably December.
Yeah.
So that we still have to be cautious with net profits. even as some of these other numbers look more positive for us.
Okay.
Those two are the only two that I really have an update on. Insurance, premium tax, and alcohol. The quarters that ended June 30th, those returns are not due until July 31st. So it'll be the 1st of August before we have an update on insurance, premium tax, and alcohol regulatory fees to know if they stayed steady or if we saw any decrease.
I bet you alcohol went up.
You would think. So obviously the quarters that we would expect to be affected are the quarters that won't come in till the end of July. But that's all I have. I don't know what other business you all may have to discuss, but.
It's really good. Thank you, Stacy.
You're welcome.
Stacy, quick question for you. So do businesses pay their net profits? How does that work for most businesses? When do they pay those?
Yeah, I would think at the time of their return for most businesses.
Okay.
They would pay. Now, if
some quarterly filers and some monthly filers.
Yeah, that's right. For example, when we were receiving net profits from Toyota, they made quarterly estimates.
Okay.
And then obviously whatever their tax return showed, they either had a credit or paid more. The same would be true of other businesses. If they're paying quarterly estimates and then when they file their return, they're either going to have a credit because they paid too much or they're going to owe a little more.
Okay. And then do some businesses, I should know this, but are they on different quarters? Not just like the annual quarters that we think of?
They could be on different fiscal years. For example, we know Toyota ends their fiscal year in March. There could be businesses that have a fiscal year like we do. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Most would be December, but.
So they pay quarterly based on their fiscal year, and other businesses do the same.
For estimate, but I think they only file one net profit return a year at the end of their.
Okay. And then Stacy, you said that $2 million roughly was budgeted to come out of our reserves.
Yes.
For the year that we're, I guess, that we just finished. How does that really, I mean, we had $9 million in reserves roughly a month ago or whatever, now maybe. How does that get reduced? When does that get reduced, or how does that get reduced?
Once I have finished making all the entries for the audit, which usually is during the fall, usually late fall, but we'll know the majority of that by the end of August, 1st of September. I always give time, example for like the insurance, premium tax, and alcohol we just talked about.
Yeah.
Those will all be receivables at June 30. Even though the returns aren't filed until July 31st, it's 2020 money.
Okay.
So those will be receivables that will go forth, and then expenses. We don't have that many expenses that linger past the end of the year. We have some, but it's a matter of waiting to see what receivables come in.
Hey, Stacy.
Yes.
If we have submitted CARES Act reimbursements to DLG for payroll generated this fiscal year, and we get it in September,
It's still for this fiscal year.
I'm sorry.
It's still for this fiscal year.
It will still count towards this 21 fiscal year. Okay.
So it will reduce our amount of deficit for the budget year we just began, but it won't have an impact on the fiscal year that you're closing out.
No, it will have an impact on the fiscal year we're closing out. If it's March payroll, even if we get that reimbursement in August or September.
Okay. I misunderstood you then. So it will be
booked as a receivable on fiscal year 2020.
That's what I thought. That makes more sense.
David, we're on a modified accrual basis, so we go ahead and recognize that income once Stacy knows what it is. So it sounds like that reimbursement will be backloaded to the fiscal year we just completed, which will have a direct impact on the cash balance, which we bring forward.
Right. Yeah.
So they're absolutely connected, but the revenue may be recognized in a different year.
Stacy, do you have any idea off the top of your head how much we have submitted or we will have submitted for?
Would need to go back and look at that payroll report for Megan to double check. I mean, I would think it would be at least, would it be $1 million at least?
At least.
I would think for 2020. I mean, that may be on the low end. I'm not sure, but we could eat up a good chunk of our CARES Act funding in fiscal year 2020.
I think the county's first application for reimbursement was around 900 and change. So I would expect that ours would be in that ballpark.
Yes. And we'll follow up on that with Devin and Megan and Drew, because I know Megan had she basically exported everything from the payroll system, and we were just trying to, I think, find out and make sure if we could submit our Excel spreadsheet that spits out of the accounting system or payroll system versus having to take all that information and transpose it onto the other document if we have all the information they're looking for.
So our surprise, when we learned that the CARES Act money might really help us, it looks like we'll feel that assistance in closing out the year we just completed, which will put us in a little better shape to begin the fiscal year.
Yes.
You know,
I personally think we will have eaten up all of that CARES Act funding by September. So we will have realized that within a 6-month period. And so we'll have an immediate and tremendous impact on the budget.
yeah, I'm really encouraged by some of this news, even though we know some things are happening today that may affect us a year from now. I'm still encouraged from the conversations we had to have just a couple of months ago.
Absolutely. So Stacy, will you come back to us, I don't know, August, September, and ask us to, I guess, amend last year's budget? Is that what we'll do?
We're past the point of being able to amend last year's budget. So obviously we completed our last one in June. We can't retroactively amend once we're past the end of the fiscal year. So the CARES Act money will be an unbudgeted income. But I think our auditors, they're gonna see that everywhere. Unless others did budget amendments at the end. I don't know if they did that. Because at the time I had already prepared the final budget amendment was when we were finding out, yes, we definitely get this much money. Up until that point, we hadn't been 100% sure. So I think our auditors, they know they're going to be dealing with this everywhere. So, we will have some unbudgeted items because of the CARES Act funding. But now the question will be, when do we do our first amendment on the new year budget? Because we will be able to capture whatever CARES Act funding is left after we submit payroll through June, as well as at what point do we, review our revenues for the new year or readjust our estimate to decide, if we see that payroll is back to normal or pretty much back to normal, we could go ahead and revise those estimates. Net profits, we may want to take a look at and decide that maybe we didn't project them low enough.
Yeah.
Knowing that is when we're really going to see the impact next year. So we can talk about that here probably in a month or so. We probably want to start talking about the first budget amendment of the year and when we want to do that, and so we can capture the CARES Act funding and hopefully capture some of these positive revenue trends for payroll.
Okay.
Yeah, David, I hope that we have an opportunity to revisit some of our other conversations quicker than we thought we might be able to.
Okay.
We still have to feel our way through that, but what we're learning in these kind of calls is that date may be sooner than we thought. Which is a happy thing. for those of us that are really involved in this budget effort and trying to get salaries where they should be.
Absolutely.
It'll make some people really unhappy because it's going to cause some decisions to get to be made maybe quicker than we thought they would.
No, I tried to express that in I guess when we passed the budget, Mayor, that was certainly, very good news considering where we thought we were anyway.
Yeah, and just so I don't make anybody uncomfortable, I've told Andrew this. I'm really disappointed in the way some have characterized our budget after it's been passed, and think that some of those characterizations of our budget are really unfair to the council and unfair to our first responders, and gave them conflicting messages that are not at all what we intended to send. So during my mayor's comments, I'm probably going to address some questions about the budget and reemphasize the priorities that you all kept in mind. And but I'm not going to let a false narrative lay out there that we didn't care about first responders, and that's why the budget could not be supported. That's just not accurate, and I'll probably address that Monday night.
Okay. All right. Well, if it's any consolation, I got a lot of positive feedback from first responders and from just people in general about getting the budget passed, and what I think we believe some of our priorities are going forward, which relate to personnel and payroll and continuing the benefits at the level that we're doing. So I felt real good about it. I know the vote wasn't the way we had hoped it would play out, but the end result was, I thought, it's good. So, but I understand where you're coming from too.
Good. Well, and we're going to stay true to what we told the council we would do. We're going to look at amending this budget multiple times, and here it is, July the 8th, and we're already talking about when should we consider doing the first budget amendment. So I know that we're acting the way we promised that we would act.
Yeah. And monitoring, watching. Stacy, thanks to you and Andrew and the mayor for keeping us on top of this. This is great. It's good news.
It is good news.
Glad it's going this direction.
Amen. Amen. Anything else we need to do this morning, Stacy?
I don't think so. Just actually, Mayor, I know we're on a finance committee meeting, but if you would mind checking your email, you may have some emails from Enterprise that look like some automated emails for ordering vehicles.
I think Joseph Yee would really like for me to electronically sign a couple of vehicle contracts.
I think he would.
I'll work on that this morning. How's that?
Sounds good. There'll probably be another one coming soon.
Guys, this is why we cut the police department back on some of the vehicles they could have, but they did have some replacements, and they also had a total loss, I think, that we're trying to get replaced. So Enterprise is wanting my signature. They've got a posse out looking for me to sign some documents. Stacy's the head sheriff, by the way.
Yeah. So Joe just emailed me and he's like, could you check with him? I said, I'll check. So.
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah, I know.
Like David, I wanted to
village.
say too, Mayor, that, I've talked to several people too, and first responders, and, they realized that we did on the budget what we needed to do, and they were very encouraging. And, and I encouraged them and told them that what our plans were. So when you address it Monday, the majority of them really already know that because of the good leadership we have and how they've gone back and spoken to people. So, you're always going to have those few. And when you have people that don't support the budget, but, they don't have any ideas or come with anything to do. And I think with parks, that's another thing we probably need to look at too. The next time we meet is where's Parks at? What are they doing? So I think that was probably a big deal. And I get it.
Yeah, it's an election year. If nothing else, we
That's
understand.
always the I know, I hate that. That's so stupid. Just do your job.
Exactly.
Golly. It's
And
crazy.
speaking of parks, Andrew and I will talk to Kimberly and try to get some updated financials and see how her year has ended for June 30, since they're probably on a cash basis. They should have an idea of where they ended the
Have they
last
got
fiscal.
open yet? They opened, didn't they?
They've
They've
opened
started up
a little
slowly.
bit at a time.
That's what I thought.
And then I've also spoken with someone at the county who handles their payments. I think typically they may give their entire allotment to Parks and Rec up front, but they're going to do it quarterly instead. And I told them that I would communicate. I know the mayor will obviously communicate with the judge if we make any changes to our allotment to Parks and Rec, so that they can adjust accordingly.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, because at this point, Connie, the fiscal court has not matched the allocation that the council made.
Really?
Yeah, the county had their budget already prepared when we encouraged Kimberly Rice to go back and look at her revenue numbers. Since they actually bring in 42% of their own revenue, their numbers matter. And we were afraid they had been too optimistic. So we asked them to revisit their revenues. And when they took a more realistic look at their revenues is why we had to increase their allocation. County had already passed their budget, and the county politely declined to match our budget allocation to Parks and Rec. But what they did is make a promise that at their mid-year budget amendment, that they would make the decision about matching what we've already done with Parks and Recreation. So
Okay.
monitor that, because if come mid-year, if the court doesn't increase their allocation, we may have to decrease ours,
Right.
which puts a double whammy on Parks and Recreation in a way that's, I don't think is fair to them, but we have to protect the city. And we really won't know the answer on this from the county till mid-year. So we as a committee have to really watch what they do there.
Okay. Wow.
There's a couple of magistrates that are not particularly happy with Parks and Recreation. I think it went back to Sherry Nichols and some folks I was among them. We all got really upset when we learned they had been multiple years without an audit. And that was a situation that Sherry could not recover from as director. And so she was forced out. Kim Rice, we think, is very capable and is doing a much better job with budgets and audits and things of that nature. But there's two magistrates in particular, Mr. Livingston and Mr. Wallace, seem to have not gotten the message that Sherry is gone, and they're still real aggressive with Parks and Recreation.
Okay.
It'll just have to play out a little longer.
Wow.
Yeah.
All righty.
Everything's complicated, Connie.
Mayor, can I ask another quick question? I know it wasn't that long ago that we looked at I think there were recommendations on the cemetery. Did we ever do anything with that or take action on that? Or was that just for us to review and give consideration to?
I think it's for us to be aware of that it's going to get on our plate real quickly. Okay. We're still in discussions. They're really sporadic, but the family now of Bill Peters now says they want us to take over Maple Grove. They haven't made any formal steps in doing that, but that's the word we keep getting back from them. So Maple Grove would need some attention. We know we already own Georgetown Cemetery, and as budget allows, there's plans for a central monument and things we might be able to do there. Thankfully, the cemetery work is an interlocal, so I have an expectation that the county join us in all this.
Yeah, yeah. I think we looked at some proposed rate increases for Georgetown Cemetery.
Yeah, has Gene actually provided those to you yet, Stacy?
He did, and I thought I'd forward to them, but I'll go back and find that email and resend it to everybody because it's been a
Probably did not-
while.
lost it.
It's been several months at this point, so I'll find it and resend it because I believe he did have proposed rates in there, and he estimated it could bring in an additional $50,000 a year.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think, David, that our responsibilities are going to get bigger pretty quickly.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah, and there's probably a whole host of things like that we need to be looking at. The last time I had an extended conversation with Jim Burgess, he said building inspection fees haven't gone up in 5 years, and they're they're increasing. You know, they're doing a good job there, but it's something that you got to periodically review.
Didn't electrical inspection recently change their rates, or?
I think it's been a couple of years, but it's definitely been more recent than building inspection. Well, I think we did it about 5 years ago.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think we can wrap those up in revenue discussions, even though they really just kind of offset departmental expenses. They're not really revenue line items for us. But yeah, we can undertake some of those at any time.
Okay.
I don't think we have to have the political sensitivity about those that we do about a general tax increase.
I totally agree, Mayor. Yeah. And I guess that's why I was kind of mentioning it. So that'd be good.
All right, folks. Been
Well,
real.
Thanks for an early morning Zoom meeting. I'm glad I got to be on part of it. And, Stacy, then you'll have this ready to bring to the council for Monday?
Yes, I'll have a municipal order and then a memo, and I'll tweak a couple of things to add a couple of controls that we talked about, but yes.
Good.
No.
And if the council could see that in their council packet ahead of time, that'd probably give them a little more confidence.
Oh, yes, it will be ready for the packet, definitely.
Okay.
I do have one question. It's a little bit about financing, but not a lot. I just, are you talking about how we can come back to meet as a council yet?
We're planning, Connie, on our next meeting, July 13th. We hope Andrew is going to give you the option. We can, everybody can make their own choice, but we're going to be set up to where the council can meet face-to-face in city council chambers on the 13th.
Okay.
We'll still interact with the public via TV and Zoom. And any council member that is uncomfortable meeting in person can sign in with Zoom. But we're going to make our first effort to be face-to-face on July 13th.
All right. That sounds good.
Yeah, and then we'll discuss from there. Since the guidelines now allow 50 people to gather, if we want to consider physically moving our meeting location to someplace where we could invite a few members of the public in. I don't know that I haven't had any request for that. Apparently there's 2 council members that get those requests, but I never hear them. So we're just still feeling our way through the reopening thing.
Okay. All right then. So if we meet face to face on Monday, you're going to send out guidelines for us to adhere to if we do it?
Yes.
Okay.
We will be, Andrew and Arlene have been working on the council chambers, and Andrew's got wires everywhere because everybody has to have
Fires everywhere.
camera has to see all the council members, and council members have to have audio. So Andrew's got council chambers set up. We will fit, but nobody else will. And we'll just go forward and handle it the best we can. But there were some folks who really wanted to meet in person rather than Zoom. Connie, I think that Polly must have thought that the fiscal court has been meeting with the public is what I think she must believe, because our Zoom meetings and the fiscal court's in-person meetings have been the exact same approach for the public. The public has to watch them on TV and interact with them on TV, even though they're meeting together. The pictures, when I've watched fiscal court meetings, I've noticed that they do not wear a mask, even though they're in the room together. I'm probably going to ask us to wear a mask if we're in the room together for an extended period of time. I can't make council members do that, but I'm going to encourage people to. And then if folks just refuse, then they have the right to just refuse. But if they do refuse at the next meeting, I'm going to have them encased in plastic. But anyway, it's an odd time, and we'll do the best we can with our next council meeting.
Okay.
Can't make this stuff up, guys.
Nope. It's for real.
All right, folks. Thank you much. We'll talk to you real soon.
Yep.